Okay, welcome to the 3-year EDFacts OMB collection package overview webinar. If you're here for this presentation, you are in the right place, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you for those that have been hanging in there. Thank you for your patience. A couple things just to go over. If you have any questions today while listening, please add them to the Q&A panel, not the chat panel on your WebEx screen. We're going to pause briefly after we cover each topic in order to respond to any questions that come through. So we're really encouraging you to send those through the Q&A panel. We're going to read them aloud, and then we'll provide answers at that time. If there's any questions that come up that cannot be answered, please know that the department will take them back, and PSC will make sure to provide a direct response to you as well as the Q&A log once the Q&A log is finalized. There is going to be a brief post-webinar survey that's automatically going to pop up at the end of the presentation when WebEx is closed out. So we're just asking if you please have a few minutes just to complete it, so that allows us to improve on any webinars and trainings that we conduct for you all in the future. And we really value any feedback you can provide. So please take a couple minutes. It's not very long to complete that. Last, this presentation is being recorded today. And then the link in the recording, the link to the recording and the slide deck that you're going to see is going to be uploaded to the EDFacts Community of Practice website. When it's available and uploaded, we'll send a dedicated broadcast message to everyone that registered in order for you all to have that to share within your states. I'm going to turn it over to Beth Young, who's going to start by providing us with an overview of where we're currently at with the package, how we got here, and go into the topics individually.
Thank you, Jess. You can go to the next slide. It's great to see so many people here, over 200 people so far. Wow. So what we're going to talk about today is how we got to this point, what happened during the comment process, what are the major changes to EDFacts for the 22-23 school year and beyond, and what are some of our next steps. So next slide. So as you can see, it takes a long time for the department to complete the work of the OMB package. After all, there are about 15 different program areas that cover over 150 data groups through EDFacts. That's a lot, right? So that's a lot to review and assess every 3 years. So Ed started their work in the spring of 2021, and we went through 2 public review cycles, and then we received the OMB approval for 22-23 and beyond for 3 years at the end of June. Next slide. Per usual, we received many comments on the package. As far as Ed packages go, besides CRDC, I don't think any other package receives as many comments as the EDFacts package. For both of them, for the 60-day and the 90-day comment period. So these are kind of the total numbers. So what I want to talk about here is explain this to you. So what is a submission versus an individual comment? A submission is when a person representing themselves or an organization goes into the system, types something in, or puts in a memo and hits enter. So there were 46 submissions, right? Then when we break those submissions down into individual comments, because many of you participated and you wrote huge memos, you answered all the directed questions, that's a lot to say. So we broke them down into individual comments. So you can see we received almost 800 individual comments in the 60-day period. You'll see the numbers for the 60-day period are higher than the 30-day period. That is normal. So the number of submissions was about half, but the number of comments was a lot less, because people, even if they were submitting again, they had a lot less to say the second time. That is very normal. And then the final thing I want you to note is that states make up the majority, the vast majority for EDFacts of the comments, right? So of the 788, 770 were from states. So those who are collecting the data, those who are here with us today. Next slide. So here's a list of the states and associations that submitted comments in either period. Some of these actually submitted comments, many comments in both periods. So I'll pause here for a minute for you to see. Okay. So the big one. why is commenting important? So the comments received make actual changes in the proposal from Ed. The directed questions are incredibly important for Ed to introduce the change, right, to you all, to talk about why, and then ask the SEAs for feedback on the change. After all the comments come in, the comments are categorized. So for example, all the assessment comments are put together in one group, and then they're subcategorized. So all the children with disability assessment comments are in a subcategory, and they're put together and provided to the stewarding program offices at Ed. Then the program offices review all the comments and consider changes they want to make in the proposal based on the comments. In some cases, the changes are big enough that conversations have to happen with leadership. In all cases, after the 60-day public comment period, conversations happen between the program offices and the EDFacts team about implementation. So you think you're getting pretty far with this proposal? Let's talk through how this proposed change would actually be implemented into a file, into data groups, into data categories. So we don't find something at the last minute after all of this that we should have done in the beginning. For example, a needed data category or a permitted value that we need to really think through when we think through all those details. So just to give you an idea for this package, how much your comments mattered. Of the new data groups proposed in the 60-day, and in the 60-day, there are more proposals than in the 30-day, but of the new data groups, half of them were revised in the 30-day package based on comments from you. Entire proposals were pulled back, right? So entire questions or other things were pulled out of the package based on comments. So that's why it's so important that you participated in this. Next slide. And the department was very clear that they wanted to thank everyone who participated in this. You had a big part of making EDFacts what it is. And so thank you very much. Okay, so we're at the end of the process now and everything is approved. So how much has changed in EDFacts? So this slide shows a comparison of the school year 21-22, which is approved data groups and categories, compared to the final approved 22-23 data groups and categories. So the first two rows, the new and revised, are the ones that should attract the most attention and would have the most impact on burden. So the difference between revised and technical correction is when something is revised, we expect there to be a change in what you report, or there could be based on what it is. A technical correction is when we change some language, so there's a language from student to children, something like that, but it doesn't change what we expect to be reported. So we want to tell you that there were words that were changed, but there is a big difference between revising something and a technical correction. And most of the data categories that change are related to the data groups that change, right? So data group changes, then it filters down to data categories and permitted values. Okay. So if we look into the number of the new and revised groups that we just talked about, we can see that the majority of the data groups that were new, or 22 out of the 26, were either assessment or neglected or delinquent, which at the end of the day are not really new data groups, but old data groups that we split into different ways. And so we retired the old ones and created new ones. Of the revised data groups, 6 of the 10 were the indicated groups where the options were expanded, right, for states reporting what they need. So I'm not going to go into any more level of detail in these areas right now because they're about to be covered by the program offices on the following slides. I just want to see, there's no questions on the process right now. Again, put your questions in the Q&A, have it. So if not, we're going to go ahead and move on to the program office part of the presentation, detailing all of the specific changes to EDFacts. So I'm not sure we got Don on.
So Don was on earlier, but we could not hear him. So I'm not sure if maybe Sarah wants to take this over.
He should be back on the call if he can be promoted to panelist, Jess. If not, then I can continue.
Let me try and see if I can find him. Hang on one moment. I show him in as a phone and that's it.
Are you not able to?
No, I'm not getting any options. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Then I will start and go over the proposal. Well, that's now an approved proposal that everybody has seen, which is to allow for multiple assessment types. This is something that we've made a change to align with the Every Student Succeeds Act and the various different assessment types that are allowable in the law. So folks will see that there's some other options like the innovative assessments and the advanced assessment. And again, these are just to really make sure that we are allowing for the flexibility that's been in ESEA as amended by ESSA. So there's the assessment types and participation statuses that have been changed by these assessment types, as well as by grade span. And then you'll still see that regular with and without accommodations and the alternate assessment are still required. And then these other assessment types, if they are being used by the states, are to be reported. We have also made some tweaks to allow for the fact that there are multiple high school end of course assessments that a lot of the states are administering. And so you may have also noticed there's kind of mathematics 1 or 2 or 3, and same thing with reading. So this is to allow for, again, kind of what we are realizing about the reality of assessments and just really making sure that the structure of the data fit based on the assessments being administered. So that's been added as well. And I think we'll turn it over to OSEP.
Yeah, could you go back a slide, please, Jess? Thank you.
Yes, hello everyone. Meredith Michelli from OSEP. And so as we have previously, we will continue to collect, children with disabilities, disaggregated data within those assessment data files. But with this package, we will start to disaggregate out the children with disabilities assessment data by major racial ethnic groups. So that's the big change for this package. For those of you who are very familiar with reporting the IDA data, Section 618 data, typically we use the 7 federal race ethnicity categories for reporting race ethnicity. This is not those, right? These are the major racial ethnic groups. So this would be aligning with the other assessment data that is being submitted on all students. So the major racial ethnic groups that are reported for all students. We will be looking at this for both math and reading, as those are the 2 subject areas for which we focus in on for the children with disabilities assessment data. And really the intent behind collecting this new disaggregation is to further be able to explore the children with disabilities assessment data through an equity lens. It will allow us to be able to conduct further analyses on the children with disabilities data, be able to potentially make some additional comparisons to the all students group. So that's really the intent behind collecting the new disaggregation. And I think with that, I'm handing it back to Sarah, I think.
Meredith, this is David from ESB. Just to give a quick overview on those of you who are wondering how this is going to impact the assessment file and the new files that we'll be creating from an IT and technical point of view. The fields will all be in the same order. However, we will have new table abbreviations and obviously permitted value abbreviations. Those will have to be newly created in the assessment files. And then we will also, as Meredith mentioned, we will also adjust the children with disabilities data collection due to the disaggregations that she just mentioned. So that's some of the impact that these changes will have from an implementation point of view regarding the assessment files.
Thank you. We're going to go back one slide. We weren't quite finished with that one. Sarah, sorry.
Thanks. So the last bullet is about the EMAPS assessment metadata survey. And I think seeing the next slide hopefully was helpful in that obviously we have to align the metadata survey to the file specs that we will now have based on the changes from the first two bullets. That the sort of very last bullet or sub-bullet is on the English language proficiency assessment metadata that we had added to the assessment metadata survey, that file spec 50, 138, 137, and 139. That's now just going to be in its own metadata survey, which will just give us more flexibility, as we go towards modernization and whatnot, and we kind of work with due dates. I think it will just make sure that, if we do ever have different due dates, we can have those metadata surveys due when we need them. So that's really the reason for that change.
Okay, I don't see any questions in the Q&A. So as folks, the program officers are talking, if you have questions about what they're talking about, please throw them in the Q&A and we will say them out loud and answer them out loud for everyone to hear. So in the meantime, I think we will move on.
All right, me again. All right, so pretty significant changes to the Title I Part D Neglected and Delinquent program that we received lots of comments on. So thank you all for that. So one of the biggest changes is to actually split the data groups by neglected and then separately for delinquent. And kind of what coincides with that change is the different list of permitted values for neglected programs and delinquent programs. So we in OESC have tried to really kind of look hard at those collections and really make sure that they really do align with the programs that are being implemented and administered in the field. And also, just making sure that the data are really going to be usable. The existing buckets were just really way too broad. And there were some kind of issues with alignment. And so we really kind of cleaned that up here. And so at the state level, you'll see the kind of data groups that are neglected, separated out from delinquent. And then at the district level, the delinquent and then the at-risk programs. The at-risk programs don't have any further disaggregations. And then with the academic achievement, we made some pretty significant changes here. We kind of changed the definition to be kind of those who took both a pre and post test to who took an initial and follow-up assessment and received a score. This is intended for more flexibility. We acknowledge these are pretty difficult data for the states to collect, and we're really trying to maximize flexibility so ultimately we can get as complete of data as we can on the academic achievement of this population. So kind of worked a little bit with that language. We also removed the disaggregation by neglect and delinquent program type. So probably used to actually it being broken down by neglected, delinquent, at risk, adult corrections, all of those different program types that we used to have. That is not going to be the case anymore. And so it's going to be at a much aggregated level by the different subjects. And then another sort of area of just and trying to provide flexibility. We had asked some directed questions in the package around, do you have the sort of content, the statewide assessment data available on this population? Some states do. It seems like a good option to offer, again, just in an effort to get as complete and usable data as possible.
Thank you. I don't see anything in the Q&A. I would love if someone would just put the word test in the Q&A and send it so we can make sure it's working. Because this is your opportunity to ask all these folks. Thank you, Wes. This is your opportunity to ask these folks questions. We can move.
I'll turn it over to Colette Roney.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay, wonderful. I was getting worried there. A moment. Thank you. This is my part for the remaining parts of Title I. And I definitely want to second the affirmation from earlier on that we really appreciated state comments on the changes we proposed. We had comments that helped us make what we had proposed better, think through them more. And we also appreciated comments when you let us know the change would not be very impactful for you all, or that you appreciated the improvement. So we've made a couple types of changes. In new data groups, we have added to file 134, a data group for collecting counts of foster care students enrolled in Title I LEAs. And we have also added to file 193, collection of the dollar amount of the LEA reservation set aside to serve homeless children and youth. The remaining changes that we have made are more in the continuous improvement realm, in just being more smaller tweaks to hopefully better represent the data and also hopefully make it easier for you to report, better aligned to the way you're collecting it. For chronic absenteeism, we have revised the file to include, among the subgroups for which data are reported, the economically disadvantaged subgroups. That is one major change. For the others, I'm going to jump ahead to the identification for school support and improvement. We have added to the permitted values there options for statuses you are already assigning, or states are already assigning to schools. An ATSI exit status and a status for schools that are CSI but have not exited that status and therefore must implement more rigorous interventions. So you can now represent those schools when you report the data in the files. These are related to files 206 and 212. For the indicator files, jumping back a bullet, we have revised them to better reflect how states are defining their accountability indicators for Title I. The statute generally requires one indicator. Many states have defined more than one indicator per category, and we now have the data reporting catching up with that, where if you have, let's say, 2 other academic achievement indicators, you can report results for schools based on both of those. Same thing if you have, say, 4, 5, 6 or more school quality and student success indicators. You can report multiple indicators within a category of indicators. Also, for the indicators, we have expanded the number of subgroup, or the number and types of subgroups for which data can be reported. There are still categories for ELs, students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged students, and the major racial ethnic groups that have been in the lists you are all very familiar with. We have found that for Title I accountability purposes, there have been a small number of cases where states have defined additional subgroups, and we wanted to allow for reporting for those so that the data fully reflect what states are doing with their accountability systems. These are very creatively named as state-defined subgroup 1, state-defined subgroup 2, and state-defined subgroup 3. So you will tell us what those subgroups mean for your state if you're reporting those data, but then you can report the data for those three subgroups. And if a state does not have a state-defined subgroup, you just won't be using those permitted values. So those are the changes to the indicator files. For the accountability metadata survey, much like with the assessment metadata survey, it is just basically reflecting the changes we have made mostly for indicators and for accountability. The metadata survey is where you will tell us what your state-defined subgroups are. It's also where you will tell us if you have multiple indicators in your accountability system, which indicator is which. We will not necessarily know that SQSS indicator 1 is chronic absenteeism, and SQSS indicator number 2 is your college and career readiness indicator. We will just have the numbers in what you report with the files. So the accountability metadata survey will give us what we need to interpret that information. And we did a scan of all state plans to try to ensure that anything you have defined in your state plans for your state's accountability system that our revised files will be able to accommodate that. And we also looked at all your comments very closely with that consideration in mind. So we anticipate that we are in good shape going into future data collections and are very much looking forward to receiving the data.
Thank you. I think we're going to pause here for a minute as we're getting comments. I'm going to take them out of order since Colette is here. And someone asked, could you repeat what file the foster care enrolled will be in? Did you say that?
Yes, file 134.
Someone else on the same idea asked if we could, before we posted the slides, if we could put in the file spec numbers in all the slides as we talk about them. Yes, we can do that. That's a great suggestion. Okay, now going back to assessment, Sarah. Ready?
Yes.
First question, just lost it. First question is confirming that proficiency is on the state assessment and not the district assessment.
That is correct. I will pause here and just make sure that's correct according to the Don. That these are the statewide assessments.
I think is Dawn still not able to get audio?
Yeah, well, we're chatting. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So state assessments only.
Okay. And did I hear an option for state assessments for NRD?
That is for so the reporting for the neglect and delinquent around academic achievement is that, well, what has been the pre and post test. What's optional is the statewide achievement data. If you have that on the population and not all of the states do, and not for all program types, if you do have it and you are able to report it, that is the optional piece.
Great. Will there be every time someone adds a question, it moves it. Will there be a new question for Title I Part D asking about participation or attendance, or are these all the changes that you said?
That question may be referring to the CSPR. And we are currently out, well, we're in between the 60-day and the 30-day public comment periods. We do have some manual entry on the Title I Part D program, but so anything related to the CSPR is going to be covered in that package. That is, I cannot speak to that right now, but please do pay attention to that package. I can provide the OMB control number. And we did have a question about the difference between kind of being participating and being served. And so that would be kind of your mechanism for letting OESE know, what's feasible there.
All right, and then Someone asked a question about if there are no more, we don't have some of the stuff, are we going to need it for school year 22-23? And yes, this package is for school year 22-23. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Sarah.
I think I would just suggest that, you know, if there are, if the states are, you know, experiencing some difficulty in kind of moving in this sort of new direction, particularly for the neglect and delinquent data collections, you know, I think just best to reach out to the communication channels that exist through PSC in the program office, to just let us know, and we can kind of work through these things on a state-by-state basis.
Okay. All right, let's move on for now. I think we're at Sarah and David are sharing the next slide.
All right, shouldn't have muted myself. All right, so with 165, now we're jumping to Title I Part C, our migrant education program. And so this is a fairly minor change, though that maybe that's a dangerous word. Maybe I shouldn't actually be saying anything to you all about what is minor or not. But for the one data group on the consolidated migrant education program fund status, we removed not applicable. That's really the change. No and not applicable were used interchangeably. And not applicable is really a subset of no. It's still, these are cases where the funds have not been consolidated. And so we've just really simplified it that if it's yes, use yes, and all other cases use no. And then with File Spec 129, CCD school, that has contained the Title I school status, data group 22. That is being moved out of that file. That file has been on a much different timeline from the rest of our Title I Part A data. And that has just been, kind of operationally a bit challenging. And so it's being kind of pulled out of the File Spec 129, and it's going to align with our other Title I Part A data so that we're in a better position to use it and to ensure its quality. And then the last bullet, I think, is NCS is around the magnet status.
Jess, can you go back? David, are you? There you go.
Yeah, I'm here. So the last bullet there is in regards to the sex gender question that we asked in directed questions during the 60-day and 30-day comment. We asked the question in both comment periods. We did get a lot of responses, varying responses. I think what we've landed on is to ask the two questions that we had proposed regarding sex, male and female. So the first question is whether your state collects more than 2 permitted values, male and female. And then the follow-up is, if you do, what are those permitted values and any definitions if you have them defined? The one thing I'd like to note here is that we really did try to find a way to collect this information from the states to understand how states are collecting these data. But it was really apparent from the responses that there was no good way of collecting something in a one-size-fits-all manner. So those are the two questions that we'll be asking. If you have any questions about how we will be using the data, we will be using the data in response to during our DQ process. So we no longer find the need to follow up with states regarding any subtotal total discrepancies with sex gender. So that in itself should reduce some burden on the states in terms of responding to data quality questions when we do that part of the process.
Thank you. And also just a note for in File Spec 129, we have retired magnet status. So before we move on to OSET, which I believe is next, Sarah, we have another question for neglected or delinquent. For served, if a student remains on unit mandated by the juvenile justice staff, if the educational program sends over an iPad tablet or packet for the student to work on, will that count as being served? Or does that student have to set foot in a classroom or have contact with educational staff?
That is a great question that I cannot answer, and I will take that back, and we'll get back to you with our answer on that.
Okay. All right, I think we can move on, Jess.
Okay, so back to the IDEA Section 618 changes. So one of the additional changes has to do with our personnel data. So these are for file specs 070 and 112. So that's going to be our special education teacher data, and then our paraprofessionals data. And for these two file specs, the change was simply to the age groups. So previously we had had states report for the age group of 3 to 5, children that are working with children with disabilities 3 to 5, ages 3 to 5, and then 6 to 21. And the change is simply to have the 3 to 5 category would be changed to 3 and to 5 not in kindergarten, so the preschool kids, and the 6 to 21 age group would be changed to 5-year-olds in kindergarten through 21, so kindergarten through age 21. So that's the change to the personnel data, and this was really just to align it with our Part B child count and educational environments data, since now we are collecting those data, just disaggregating out the 5-year-olds by not in kindergarten, and that was a change that we made during the previous EDFacts information collection package. So we're playing a little bit of catch up, but it is certainly to align the age groups for those two data collections. The other change is we are implementing 2 new questions in our maintenance of effort and coordinated early intervening services data collection. So that's MOE CEIS data collection. Starting with the 23-24 data. So this we are delaying it a year, implementation a year. But starting with the 23-24 data, we will be asking for the count of children with disabilities receiving comprehensive coordinated early intervening services, or CCEIS, during the reference year, as well as the number of children without disabilities receiving CCEIS within that reference year. And so back in December of 2016, there new regulations around significant disproportionality were passed. In 2019, states started to implement those regulations, and we are now collecting data that is directly related to those new regulations. So in those regulations, they allowed for the money reserved if LEAs are identified for significant disproportionality, they are required to reserve funds for comprehensive coordinated early intervening services, or CCEIS. They can use those funds to provide services to children with and without disabilities. That was a change in the regulation. And so now we are collecting data specific to that change. And the intent is to be able to understand the impact of the new regulation, the new aspect to this regulation, as well as to be able to monitor the implementation over time. And again, that is on the implementation is delayed 1 year. So that starts with the 23-24 data that will not be due till 25. So lots of advanced, well, it seems like lots of advanced warning on that one. The other piece to it is that we previously collected a question asking for the state's definition of significant disproportionality in our IDEA state supplemental survey, so our metadata survey for IDEA. We are retiring that question. We will no longer be asking it on the state supplemental survey. This similar, actually more detailed information on the state's definition of significant disproportionality is now being collected through the IDA applications that come in annually. And so this question ended up being duplicative, and there's much more detailed information coming in through those the applications. So we went ahead and retired the question from the SSS IDA. And with that, I think I'm handing it back to Beth.
Actually, you got a lot of questions, so you should just.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay. I think these are more comments, but you might want to have something to say. Our state has 4-year-olds in kindergarten, and we have 8-year-olds in pre-K.
So we are going to maintain those 2 age groups still. So 3 through 5, not in kindergarten, 5 in kindergarten through 21.
Okay. The ed environments for each age group are different. It means we can't report some children in the count.
Are different means we can't. So the intent of the change for the personnel data was to align with the age groups for ed environments. And so specifically with those 5-year-olds being disaggregated out by not in kindergarten and in kindergarten, so the preschool versus kind of in the school age environments. So I'm not sure, I would have to follow up. Maybe we can have an offline conversation on where the misalignment is coming in.
Okay. Will there be clarifications for capturing student count data when a portion of CCEIS, it just moved, is used for professional development?
Will there be clarification? So we have previously referred back to the long-standing Q&As that on CEIS really. So we'll have to go back and look at that. But regarding how to report kids who are when teachers are receiving professional development with the use of those funds. But I would say the way you have been reporting, so a little more background here, we used to collect the count of kids who were receiving CEIS back then. Before the new regulation, it was just CEIS due to significant disproportionality. And for the time being, the kind of the guidance around how to report kids who have been impacted by the professional development provided through CC or CEIS is going to maintain the same. If there is additional clarifications needed, please submit specific questions to PSC and we'll take it back to our monitoring folks to further try to provide further clarification.
All right, so just to clarify on this screen, this slide narrative, you had talked about the new EMATs not starting until 23-24, and someone wanted clarification that the changes to file specs 70 and 112 will indeed start with school year 22-23.
Correct, yes. The personnel change is related to data for 22-23. It is solely the CCEIS data, the 2 new data elements regarding CCEIS that is being delayed a year to 23-24 data.
Okay. Okay. I think we're going to let you rest for a minute. And then we had one for Colette back there, and I see it got asked again. So Colette, we're going to talk about the foster care. Both served and enrolled, the words served and enrolled have been used for the Title I Part A foster care. Can you please confirm which one is correct?
Yes, it's enrolled.
And I think that was asked before, yes. So I believe, I don't know, David and Liz or anyone else thinks, are there any questions we didn't cover to this moment? I think we got them.
It looks like we got them all.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go on, but please keep writing in your comments because the rest is just, you know, how to do stuff. All right, how do you find the package? Jess, would you mind putting in a link in the Q&A to the community's website? So the easiest way, not that I don't think the other government sites that post our package aren't easy, but the easiest way to get the package is through the EDFacts community website. All of the pieces of the package are there. And I just want to talk about them again for a minute, particularly attachment A. So attachment A is an Excel file, right? It's searchable. And this year we've added a sheet that compares 21-22 to the final package. So if you just want to skip everything that changed in all the packages, you can go right to that sheet and you have everything that changed, right? So everything that we've been talking about, you can find. Attachment B is the directory. We didn't make any changes to that. C, you've heard about a couple of EMAPS collection changes. Those are in red. They're noted that they were revised. They're very easy to find. Just are both of our directed question attachments. There's no answers to them. It's just the original directed questions that we asked all of you. E is the overview and explanations, but what you're probably most interested in is F. And so there are two of these. So these are response to public comments during the 60-day and during the 30-day. And so the 30-day equaling the final. So that would be how the department interpreted your comments and responded to your comments. And then there's some supplemental materials. Okay, I see some more questions coming in. Okay, what is PSC and how do I reach out to them? Great. So Liz is answering it and we're going to get to that in a minute. Okay, why don't we go to the next slide? Okay, and so when you get the slides too, this is a live link to the EDFacts package. But you can just go to the community website and look at it, and there's the official control number, and it is a 3-year package, so it covers 3 years of data and doesn't expire until 2025. And obviously the next steps are is the file specification work, so the different program offices now are working to create all the file specifications so those can be posted in a timely manner. And I think we're at the question slide. I'm going to pause here and just look through, but I don't think we have any new ones. Yeah. Jess, are you able to post a link to the community site? And then I'm going to answer.
Yeah, it won't let me enter it into the Q&A. I did send it in the chat, which I told everybody to do,
Okay.
but the only way I could do it. But I will also include that link in the broadcast that's distributed once everything's posted by the end of tomorrow.
Okay. So the final changes inside the package, the best place is to go to attachment A and to go to, there's 2 tabs, I think, data group changes from school year 21-22. And then that is pretty much all of the 22-23, everything that is new, unchanged, revised, technical corrections is all there. And you can filter it. So you can filter by all things that are new, and then you can just see the things that will be new, right? Or you can do it by revised, or you can see the whole thing. But that's where you would, it's posted on the link. You would want to see it in attachment A. Jess, I don't know how to answer the question about the written QA.
Yep, I think the question is, we mentioned that the QA log would be posted. These will be the questions that are asked today in the webinar. We just extract them and post them so that you guys have the formal responses from the department.
Okay. I think we've only not answered one question, which is pretty good thus far. Any other questions before we let everyone go and go back to work? And if you're typing a question and you want me to hang on, say hang on, if your question is long. I don't know, you talked to this, Jess, this slide?
I can talk to it. Just, I know the question's been asked. Actually, there was a question at 2:50. If you can see the QA log, I was able to post the direct link to our resources page on the EDFacts Community of Practice site. That's where you're going to be able to find those official OMB package documents Beth was referring to. That will also be the same website where we'll post the slides. So we will send a broadcast tomorrow once everything is available. Again, we will, you'll have an automatic post-webinar survey pop up through WebEx. It'll pop up in your browser. If you could just take a couple minutes to complete that, it would be so helpful. And then I think Sarah and Meredith kind of alluded to this, but if after today's webinar you have any additional questions or thoughts, please feel free to email us at edfacts@ed.gov. We're the Partner Support Center, so we'll work with the department to get a response to your questions. And if you're not familiar with us, or I know there's a lot of other individuals from states on the call today, just work with your EDFacts coordinator. They work with us every day, so they'll know the process to get you a response to your program-specific questions. So.
Okay, we have a few more questions. So this is for OESE. Can you describe the changes for Title III file specs in the package? I'm seeing a few while looking quickly through attachment A.
I can try to pull that up on my end. Admittedly, I was not necessarily ready to speak to those, but I can do my best.
And then I'm guessing this next one we're not going to be able to answer off the top of our head, but we can answer it in the Q&A that Jess is going to share. Is it possible to get a list of all the file specs being retired, not just data groups within file specs, and new file specs we can expect to see coming out soon? So usually the answer would be none or hardly any. But in the case because of assessment, though, there will be some. But I don't think anyone can answer that off the top of their head. We'd have to look that up and put that in writing. When can we expect the 22-23 file specs to be posted? I'm gonna send that one to David.
We're still working on those. They should be coming out. I don't want to give a specific date, but they should be coming out within the next couple months for at least the earlier files.
And I do want to, a couple people said, right, if you have questions, more questions, to please send them to partner support. So please do that. Certainly while file specs are being created, is it a great time to be asking questions on things you might need more information about. And then just the note, this is like sending something to partner support. For NRD, the definition of served will be vital. Our environment is very different from K-12 community schools. And
Okay, yeah, appreciate that, and really do encourage people to pay attention to the CSPR package as well, since that is also where we have important reporting requirements on our programs as well. So I can speak to so with Title III. So we have changed the reporting period for file spec 116. So we had a couple different data groups in there, and they were different reporting periods, which was causing some difficulty. And so that has been changed in file spec 116. So both of the data groups in there have the same reporting period.
Okay. Someone asked a question, Sarah, about the CSPR package. Can you tell us where you are in that package process and when the next step will be?
Yeah, so it is let me put in the not the the OMB control number is necessarily the clearest thing in the world. But I can also provide a link to the sort of reg info site. So we locked down the 60-day public comment period at the very beginning of August. And so we're close to now finalizing the 30-day package. And then that will go out for folks, and you'll be able to also see our responses to, I think we got about 10 submissions, not very many, on the CSPR package, but we'll post that, but it will be out there for the 30 days. And then we'll do the same thing, review the comments that we get, and then we'll post the final package. So hopefully within the next 2-3 weeks, we will have that kind of out there where it's official and you can enter in your public comments. That OMB control number is 1810-0724. So if you search for it on the Federal Register or on reginfo.gov, we can provide links. You'll be able to see that package. Just there's nothing you can do right now until the public comment period is back open for 30-day. But it might be helpful for you to see some of the other comments that states have asked, especially if you didn't get a chance to participate in the 60-day. But there was a proposal around this sort of distinction of what it means to be served by the neglect and delinquent program.
And Sarah, does that package cover school year 22-23?
It does, yeah. So the hope that it is that it will cover 22-23 in the next 3 years after that, to align with the EDFacts package.
Okay, so for your information, the best way to keep track of OMB packages is through the Federal Register. So you can create alerts. So the Federal Register, I have one that anything that comes out of the Department of Ed through the Federal Register, I get a little alert. So that's a great way. You can put it in so you get a little ping every time the word CSPR or EDFacts shows up. And the Federal Register, the packages aren't there, but they announce that the packages are out and tell you where you can go get them. Okay, so there's a question. It would be great to have a comprehensive list of changes to specs for 21-22 with specs identified, and one for future years as well. If these slides will provide that info with additional elements, it would be great. It gets confusing on what's now, what's coming, and what's in the process. Thank you. Well, there's a lot to unpack here for this question. I don't know if you want to try it, David, because the first part is about 21-22.
Yeah, with any changes in the file specs, we do make notations directly in the file specs that what's being changed. So I don't know if that addresses your questions in terms of list of changes. And then for future, including the 22-23 file specs and beyond, which are part of this new package, if you go to one of the attachments, I think it's attachment A, Beth, we do have a tab there that lists all the changes for the categories and the data groups from 21-22. So you should be able to get a comprehensive list of all the changes that are coming with the new package.
And that does include a file spec number. So you can filter the whole thing just by the file spec you care about and see what's happening inside the file spec, or you can filter by new things and then see the file specs that are impacted by new things.
If you want to see those changes incorporated directly in the file spec, unfortunately, you'll just have to wait for the version of that file spec to be published. And then we do make notations, as I mentioned, any new or revised things that are within that file spec.
Okay, and thank you, Melissa. Posted the link to the CSPR notice and the docket. As Sarah said, it's kind of like on hold now. It's between, but keep watching it. It'll come out. Plus, the department will announce it 100 different ways that it's out and asking for your comments. Okay, I think that we covered all the ones that are out, unless someone can correct me. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the folks from the department will hang out here for 5 or 10 minutes to see if any other questions come in. But in the meantime, we want to thank everyone. If you participated in the comment process, fabulous. And in coming today. And someone else asked another question about the file specs. I think that David answered that. And yep, Jess just wrote the answer. So we'll see what happens next if we get a question or the number of participants goes down to 0. How to get a notification. So the Federal Register is where all of the announcements are for OMB packages. So you can go there, and I think there's a way that you can sign up for a free account, and it'll give you notifications every time there's a package out of ed or anything, or with the word CSPR in it. And certainly your EDFacts coordinator should be sharing with everyone, because we send notices out to them. Okay, last folks either stopped paying attention and forgot they're on, or they're writing questions. There we go. Jess, I don't know how you usually officially wrap up.
Sure. So we are going to go ahead and wrap it up. And as Beth mentioned, if you guys have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email them to PSC, edfacts@ed.gov, and we will work with the department to get you a response directly. So if you have any questions after today, that is the best way to get a hold of us. So we thank you all for joining, and we know your time is valuable. So we hope that the information provided today helps you. And we're looking forward to a good collection for 22-23. And with that, I will let everyone go and hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you.
June, if you're still on the attachment A and the final one, should in the particular tab for school year 21-22 comparison to that just has one